What's up, party people? It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live and in living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter? It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, DJLittleRock.com. Let me say that one more time. DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote. And maybe you can have me on the ones and twos, the digital wheels of steel at your next event. And if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Use the hashtag What Makes You Famous and find it everywhere. Time for a little What Makes You Smarter. Learn with me right here on the program. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today for Sunday, June 21st, 2020. Oh, and happy Father's Day. 10 things you need to know today. Number 1, Trump's first rally in months draws smaller than expected crowd. President Trump on Saturday held his first rally since the coronavirus pandemic struck in the United States in March, speaking before a crowd at the Bank of Oklahoma Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The president embarked on a typically meandering speech in which he criticized his Democratic presidential opponent, former Vice President Joe Biden, and complained about a recent push by protesters to tear down monuments. He also said he has urged his officials to slow down coronavirus testing, which the campaign later said was meant in jest. There were reportedly many empty seats in the 19,000-seat arena, and Trump's planned speech to an overflow inside the venue was canceled due to a lack of attendance. Trump and the campaign blamed the lower than expected turnout on protesters interfering with potential rally goers, although reporters on the ground did not corroborate the claims. This is according to NBC News and The Guardian. Number 2, UK police treating fatal stabbing as terrorist attack. British police said Sunday they are treating a Saturday evening stabbing in which 3 people were killed and 3 others seriously wounded as a terrorist attack, though a motive remains uncertain. The incident occurred in Forbury Gardens Park in the town of Reading, west of London. The Thames Valley Police said officers arrested a 25-year-old man and, quote, there is no intelligence to suggest that there is any further danger to the public, end quote. Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been briefed on and is monitoring the situation. Hours before the stabbing, a Black Lives Matter protest took place in the same park, but police said there is no connection between the events. This is according to the Associated Press and the BBC. Number 3, Barr informs federal prosecutor Trump removed him from job. Attorney General William Barr on Saturday informed Jeffrey Berman, the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, that President Trump had removed him from the job, though Trump tried to distance himself from the situation. On Friday, Barr announced that Berman was stepping down, only to have the latter publicly refute the notion and show up for work the next morning. Barr didn't offer an explanation for the decision, although tensions have reportedly remained high between the two since Barr was sworn in 2019. New York's Southern District is one of the country's top federal prosecution offices, and Berman was overseeing investigations into Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, and his associates. Berman initially planned to continue fighting his removal, but relented when Barr allowed his second-in-command, Deputy U.S. Attorney Audrey Strauss, to move into the acting role. This is according to the Associated Press and MSNBC. Number 4, judge rules Bolton can publish book. U.S. District Judge Royce Lamberth on Saturday ruled that former National Security Advisor John Bolton can publish his forthcoming book, The Room Where It Happened, despite the Trump administration's attempt to halt its release over concerns about exposing classified information. Quote, for reasons that hardly need to be stated, the court will not order a nationwide seizure and destruction of a political memoir, end quote, Lamberth wrote. That said, Lamberth said Bolton, quote, gambled with the of the United States, end quote, and exposed himself to civil and potentially criminal liability. indicating that he should have procured final approval from national intelligence authorities. This is according to CNN and NPR. Number 5, Spain opens borders to European tourists. Spain reopened its borders to visitors from most European countries on Sunday following a 3-month lockdown due to the coronavirus pandemic, which hit the country hard. Spain's borders are open to European Union countries, except for neighboring Portugal at Lisbon's request, as well as Schengen area members outside the bloc and the United Kingdom. The government's hope is that the country's tourism industry, which provides more than 12% of Spain's GDP, will receive a much-needed jolt. Arriving passengers will have their temperature taken at the airport and provide contact details, and social distancing and hygiene guidelines remain in place. Spaniards are also allowed to travel throughout the country freely. This is according to Reuters and the BBC. Number 6. 6 Trump campaign staffers tested positive for coronavirus before Tulsa rally. 6 members of the campaign advance team for President Trump's Saturday rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma, reportedly tested positive for the coronavirus before the rally took place. A state re-election campaign said the staffers were quickly quarantined, and neither they nor anyone who had immediate contact with them would be at the rally. Hundreds of staffers were reportedly tested at the time the positive cases were revealed. The decision to host the rally worried public health experts at the national and local level. Oklahoma is one of several states experiencing an uptick in coronavirus infections, but the Trump administration waved away the criticism and said every attendee had their temperatures checked upon entering the Bank of Oklahoma Center and were offered face masks. This is according to NBC News and Axios. Number 7. 1 killed, 1 injured in shooting in Seattle's police-free zone. A 19-year-old was killed and another critically injured in Seattle protester-run region known either as the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone or the Capitol Hill Organized Protest Area. Protesters have occupied the area around an abandoned police precinct since June 8th, but the Seattle Police Department wrote in a statement that detectives are investigating the situation. Quote, despite the challenges presented by the circumstances, end quote. They believe the suspect or suspects fled and a motive remains unknown. Medics tried to treat the deceased victim and called the Seattle Fire Department to come help, but the department said it would not enter the area unless it was secured by police, although it reportedly set up outside. Armed officers reportedly did eventually enter the zone. This is according to the New York Times and the Washington Post. Number 8. 1 dead, 11 injured in Minneapolis shooting. A man was killed and 11 other people suffered non-life-threatening injuries after a shooting in Minneapolis, Minnesota, police said Sunday. No arrests have been made and the motive remains unclear. The shooting reportedly took place in a relatively busy area as Minnesota begins allowing bars and restaurants to reopen with limited service during the coronavirus pandemic. On June 1st, numerous witnesses said they heard the gunfire, and one said he saw at least 2 groups firing weapons at each other. The preliminary police investigation indicated, quote, individuals on foot, end quote, started shooting not long after midnight and later fled the scene. This is according to the Wall Street Journal and CNN. Number 9, Minnesota lawmakers unable to pass police reform bill. The Minnesota on Saturday failed to compromise on a package of law enforcement reforms despite promises to enact changes following the killing of George Floyd while in police custody. The divide was reportedly a partisan one, with Democrats and Republicans unable to reconcile their respective calls for far-reaching and more limited reforms. Democrats said the Republicans' plan didn't differ much from reforms that were already in place in most law enforcement agencies, while the GOP bristled at the Democrats' proposal to restore voting rights to tens of thousands of felons and place the state's Democratic Attorney General Keith Ellison in charge of prosecuting police killings. Governor Tim Walz, Democrat, called the legislature's inability to pass a bill an, quote, embarrassment, end quote. This is according to the New York Times and the Star Tribune. Number 10, New York's 'Tis the Law wins fanless Belmont. 'Tis the Law, a heavy favorite, won the Belmont Stakes on Saturday in front of an empty grandstand on Long Island. The Belmont usually caps horse racing's Triple Crown, preceded by the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness. But the coronavirus forced the sport to tinker with the schedule this year. The Derby will now take place on September 5th, and the Preakness is scheduled for a few weeks later on October 4th. The Belmont was New York's first major event since the pandemic struck, and the winning horse was, perhaps fittingly, a local. 'Tis the Law is the first Empire State bred horse to win the race since 1882. Dr. Post finished second, and Max Player came in third. This is according to ESPN. That's 10 things you need to know today for Sunday, June 21st, 2020. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Hey, I'm a dad. I enjoy being a dad. It's a good thing. And if your dads are still around, make sure you say hello to them today and tell them how much you appreciate them. This has been What Makes You Smarter. Also, if you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. That's it for me. Drop me some comments. Let me know what you're up to in this time. It's Keys Dan, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here. Peace. I'm out. If you like what you hear, I encourage you to follow What Makes You Smarter on social media. Find it on Facebook at What Makes You Smarter, Instagram at What Makes You Smarter, Twitter at SmarterWhat, and YouTube. Username Keys Dan. Leave What Makes You Smarter podcast a review and subscribe. Listen to What Makes You Smarter podcast on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. My personal favorite, learn with me on my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. And if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Call 501-470-6386 and leave a message to set up a time for What Makes You Famous. Support What Makes You Smarter podcast using the PayPal, paypal.me/Keys Dan. Email info@radiowhat.com. What Makes You Smarter is a production of Keys Dan Enterprises Incorporated at keysdan.com. Thank you for listening.